Honest community, before we dive into this episode, we've got a quick free favour to ask. If you enjoyed the Honest Property podcast, please hit like, follow and subscribe wherever you're listening from. It helps us grow, reach more people and bring on guests that you want to hear from. Thanks for being a part of this. We appreciate you more than you know.
Hello, welcome to the Honest Property podcast with your host Becky and Ruth, and we like to talk all things property, business, holistic, and just a holistic way of doing it, especially. But today we have Imogen back from Freedom, the founder of Freedom Geeks, but we also have Yas and Gio, who also work for Freedom Geeks as well. And this is the most that we've had on our podcast. So this is exciting to see where this goes.
So welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being on the episode.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you for having us.
We've got to try our best to talk over each other, but we can do it.
Yeah, so today's episode is especially interesting because we're going to have all forms of perspectives from the investor, the business owner, as well as the VAs themselves. So we're really excited to hear about your journey and the story of the background of what goes on behind the scenes.
But we'd also like to say we did have a podcast with Imogen before, just highlighting how much value it is to have a VA, especially in the property investing business industry. Freedom Geeks are very well known and they have been recommended so many times to us. That's why we really wanted to get Imogen on. We've met Gio already and now we've met Yas, and it's just, we know the value of being able to have a great team for your business. Like, it's just so important, and to be able to do that with virtually as well on globally, that's just amazing, especially now in 2025. More people are seeing the value of having VAs that wasn't so obvious before in business.
One thing that I wanted to do that I don't really see other VA agencies do is involve Filipinos in this conversation. And it's something that I've personally done for a little while because Yas and Gio are kind of frontliners for the Freedom Geek. So they're usually the first people that our potential customers speak to. They've very much got these kind of like camera personalities. Both of them, they're quite happy to be on screen. That's not a problem for them because, a lot of Filipino VAs are maybe in the background doing administration, and both Gio and Yasmyne they're going to do a little bit of an intro. So you will see why they're a bit more happy with that in a short while, because there is a little bit of a story to that for both of them individually. But one thing that I've done is I've launched webinars. They're kind of getting up and running now, and I like to co-present them with Yas or Gio, both of them. So we've done that a few times, and it's part of my kind of queen of delegation methodology. Like, what would happen if we had a webinar and I was sick, or is there someone else in my organization who would actually be really good at presenting webinars? So as I've done with almost everything in the business, or as I continually challenge myself to do, because this is quite rare. I'm not sure I've ever seen anyone leverage Filipino virtual assistants into co-presenting webinars. And there are things you have to think about. It does need to be the right kind of person. You can't just sort of make your admin virtual assistant do it overnight, because they'll probably have a meltdown and it may just not be for them. So there are a few things to think about, but it's something we've done a few times, and they've co-presented with me, and we understand, I think, the energy, the rapport. We've structured it, who does what. We're team working. So while one person's on screen, one person might be monitoring the chat. We know what happens if one of us gets cut off, including me. I've told these two, if my internet ever goes down or if I don't turn up, you need to be ready to run the whole thing without me. So no pressure, but that's my expectation. But obviously with a lot of support about how to do that on the way. I threw them in the deep end today by saying, why don't you come on this podcast with me? Suggestion from the last time that I spoke to you, because I'm like, everything's about virtual assistants, but no one seems to be speaking to them in a public way. And I really wanted to break the mold and do something a little bit different. And you ladies love that idea, which is why they're here today. And yeah, I think the personal stories of both of them are quite interesting. What they were doing before they came to work with the Freedom Geek, why they came to work with the Freedom Geek, etc. And then, if we can invite them to talk about that, and then you can ask any follow-up questions, because this is a side of the story which I think remains untold a lot of the time. So it's really great that we're getting to do this. So Yeah, guys, do you want to?
So glad that we're getting their perspectives as well. So how about you guys, Yasmyne and Gio? Do you wanna
We start with
start with
first?
Yes, maybe I can just talk a bit more about how I started in the Freedom Geek. But yeah, so where do I start? Well, now I've been a part of the business for 4 years, so it will be 5 years in July of this year. Before I actually joined the Freedom Geek, it was at the height of the pandemic. So before the pandemic, I was pursuing a career in acting. So I love performing. I love acting. I have been in a few commercials here and there. If you guys are familiar with Jollibee,
I need to find
Well, I need to see these commercials now.
in the commercial, I'm eating the Jollibee French fries. It like comes from the top, from above, and then it gets to my hands, and I start eating the fries.
for anyone who's listening, Jollibee is like
It's
an
basically
iconic fast food chain.
It's
in the
basically
Philippines.
McDonald's, but like
Yes, yes. So Filipino represent. But yeah, at the height of the pandemic, everything shut down. There were no filming, tapings and everything. And during this time as well, I went back to school to study business. So before the pandemic, I was studying, doing tapings at the same time, and then a pandemic came, everything shut down, and I was thinking, okay, like how do I financially support myself, and how can I earn online? So I was starting to look for jobs in virtual assistant world. Like, can I start a business? Can I do like marketing and everything? So I was really researching on what I can do to earn online, and it was just really amazing because I came across Imogen's job that she was looking for a sales specialist. And during that time, I was really scared because there are a lot of job advertisements online, but you don't really know what to look for. Is it legit? Is this something? Is it going to be a scam or what? So when I found Imogen's job description of what she's looking for, I actually did a bit of research of her before I applied for the Freedom Geek. And I remember specifically finding this interview that she had with another entrepreneur that got VAs from the Freedom Geek. And she was just talking about how she manages virtual assistants, how she is more of like a leader and a mentor. And that really, really caught my attention because when I was looking for a boss, I was really looking for more of a mentorship and someone who would really understand my perspective of, I'm studying. I will do everything that I can to work and do my best. But then at the same time, I just really wanted someone to understand the importance of flexibility for me. And it just so happened that Imogen, when I spoke to her, I think my job interview was almost for 2 hours. But more than that, I just really enjoyed speaking to her. It was a no-brainer for me when I had the job interview that I really wanted to work with her. And true enough, when I started working for her, I really felt like I found gold. Like I felt like I was like the luckiest person on earth being able to study online and work at the same time. So she also really supported the fact that I love acting, I love performing. And another thing that I really appreciate about her, like she mentioned earlier, is that she really puts the VAs in job roles that really complement our strength. And one of the things that I really appreciate about Imogen is that she knows that I'm a creative, not the best with admin, but bring me to someone that I can talk to. Game on, I can do it. So yeah, that was just really important for me. And yeah, now almost 5 years later, I'm still very happy that I'm able to work with Imogen. Fun fact that I actually saw her for the very first time physically when she brought me to Mexico City. So yeah, so that's like a whole different story that Imogen helped me finish my internship for school. So I actually graduated with a business degree back in August of 2023. One of the requirements, thank you, and one of the requirements I needed was to have like a face-to-face internship with any company in the world, but it has to be at least face to face and also online. I told Imogen, Imogen, I don't want to apply for another job here in the Philippines just to complete the internship. Is there a way that I can like meet you, whether it's in London or in Mexico? And then true enough, we worked together, we communicated with each other in terms of how it would work. And yeah, I was able to graduate, and then now I'm here, and then now Gio's here, and he's joining me in sales. So I'm happy about that.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I love that story. And what I love about this as well is that, how old are you, Yaz? Could I ask?
Yes, I'm 29 years old.
I was going to say it's a very like just the VA, the concept of VA, the business model is it's a modern way of how people want to live life, especially millennials. That we want to have that flexibility, and this sort of the role that you're in, I think, is so fitting from everything that you said. You're still being able to pursue, like earn money in a way like it's not. I mean, it's not easy. If it was easy, then everyone would do it. But it's rewarding. But also you're able to pursue your passions with acting as well. And I just love that it doesn't mean you just need to do one thing. You can do multiple things. And this job really is the catalyst for all of it.
And to pile onto that,
Yes.
I love like this rings so loudly that Imogen really understands energy.
Yeah.
Knows where to delegate really accurately by the sounds of it. Who is great at doing what, and just appreciating the person behind the job. Which
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I have acting workshops tomorrow, and that's something that I again told Imogen. Like I always just made sure that I communicate with her. And when I told her, when I graduated, I told Imogen, like, Imogen, I think I want to go back into the acting scene. Maybe just do workshops, audition here and there. And I really talked to her about how can we work around this, because at that point I was the only salesperson, so the person who would cover for me if ever, I can't make a sale would be Imogen alone. And I didn't want that, because I took so much pride in Imogen not doing any sales call when she onboarded me in 2020. So, we talked about how can we find another salesperson that I can train up, so that at least I'm not the only person doing it. And come Gio, I'm very grateful for Gio as well, that we were able to work through it, train Gio up, Imogen being there on the side as well to really guide us all throughout. Yeah, everything, this job doesn't feel like a job. Of course, there are challenges that we have to overcome as a team, but then at the same time, it's so collaborative that it's just very fitting with me personally, my personality of loving the creativeness of Imogen and everyone just helping each other make the Freedom Geek great, and also of course find the best VAs for our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with your acting skills and with sales, they're so transferable. Like they both go hand in hand in both sectors. I think it's just like the perfect fit. Imogen obviously knew what she was doing.
Yes. Absolutely.
How about your journey, Gio? I mean, we have already, in transparency, we've already met Gio, and the system that came before actually having a conversation with you in real time. I just love how we already knew so much about Gio before we even got on a call. So, Freedom Geeks, your process means you really get to know who you're going to talk to. But for those who have not seen your video introduction, do you want to share your story, Gio?
Yes, for sure. I do have some surprises as well. So yes, indeed, I am also a performer. I'm not an actor though. I'm not an actor. Saw Yasmyne perform. She has amazing acting skills, guys. I swear. She really has amazing acting skills. Aside from the Jollibee commercial, she was also part of a teleserye here in the Philippines, which is actually amazing. Yes, her role was amazing.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ang Provinciano by any chance.
Gonna have to look it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up now.
Because
Provinciano, okay.
I was shocked as well. Oh my god, I'm gonna work with this person. So that was so nice for me also. Well, just to tell everyone, I'm also a performer on the dance side. I actually competed for the Philippines for hip hop international competition in Arizona, and we won bronze medal. So I'm very, very happy with that. Yes, definitely. But to give you a surprise, actually I was part of I before I got in the Freedom Geek, I actually worked in accounting for like 5 years. So that's very far from what I'm currently doing. That's why when I actually applied and I got the offer of a relationship manager, I was so confused. I was like, where in my resume did they see that I had the potential to do client facing roles? That's why I can really I can really say to my clients that Imogen knows what she's doing. She knows who's proactive. She knows who's smart because I'm in accounting for like 5 years. I have an accounting degree. And for some reason, being in this role made me realize that it's not something that I really like doing because I love what I'm doing now. So I can really say that Imogen really spots the right people. And then we also practice that really. That's why as same as our call last time, I told you we only look for smart, proactive, switch on. We need to learn, we need to grow candidates because regardless of their skill sets or regardless of their previous experience, if these people are smart and proactive, you can really offload tasks to them. So I'm so happy because Imogen trained Yasmyne and Yasmyne trained me. I was very, very honored because I was a relationship manager before handling the clients and all. And I did not expect to do well. I was very, very happy because in that role, I realized I like talking to people. I like being able to help them, seeing their smile, seeing the smiles on their faces, being able to have a VA. You mentioned in your previous podcast, it was so nice. You were very, very excited that the Freedom Geek is composed of Filipino VAs, which is a full circle moment for you because you were able to give back to the community. That makes me feel so happy as well, being able to give jobs to my fellow Filipinos, which I know they have amazing work ethic. They have amazing work ethic. They work with integrity. These people are so amazing. My people are so amazing. So every time a client says, I'm so happy with my VA, I was like, I know, right? I know these
I
people
told you.
would really make you very, very happy. And of course, seeing Imogen appreciate us as well really makes us happy also. Especially when the first time I saw her in Manila, we had our team building. It was such a core moment for me. It was really one of the best things that happened last year because of course, being able to see the team, being able to see Imogen, it gave me more love for the team, even if we're just working online. I love the team. We're so energetic. Everyone's very energetic, especially during the meetings. So meeting Imogen was really such a good addition to my love for the team as well. So yeah, that's a bit of my story. That's why I really like talking to people. I really like being able to do the sales role now because in this role I'm being able to provide clients, letting them know that we are the ones that you're looking for. We can really help you because we can see how clients get overwhelmed with so many things. And it's not that they don't want help. It's just that they don't know they can get help with the tasks that they can offload. And of course, very, very happy to hear that so many clients are very happy with us.
Oh, I love hearing that. I love the tangent that your life has gone on. Accountant
Yeah,
to
I
now
know.
sales. Your energy is so fitting. Like I see you suit this so much more clearly than
Yes.
potentially what an accountant would. The energy of an accountant needs.
Yes, definitely. I can't imagine not talking the whole time.
Curiosity. I know. How do you find the difference between working with like a Filipino employer or company as opposed to the international clients that you now work with?
All right. So on my end, with regards to working with Imogen compared to working for a Filipino company, first off, my previous work was on a graveyard shift. It is a Filipino company, the BPO industry, but I still work with US clients. So it is still quite different. But with regards to it being flexible, because of course I have to go to the office. I have to commute for 2 hours, 2 hours back and forth because the office is very far. Plus, I work on a graveyard shift, so I work at night and then I go home in the morning, which is harder to commute in the morning. So to answer your question, I do believe working for the Freedom Geek compared to my previous Filipino company work, it's really more of providing me freedom to be able to do so much more aside from work. But regardless, I do believe I do provide still the quality of work. It made me realize that the quality of work that you provide doesn't really necessarily connect to the number of hours you spent on a table. It's really more of like really being able to provide quality work regardless. Especially that given that Imogen gives us so much freedom and all, it doesn't make me want to take advantage of that. It makes me want it makes me her to trust me more. I want to do so well because she gave me this freedom. I want to do so well to really make sure that she feels that I did the right decision of trusting them to do work at any time they want, of course. So yeah, that's the main difference for me.
What would you say the main difference is, Yas?
For me, so my previous experience before working for Imogen, it was more of like the filming, like gigs here and there. So I think for me, my main struggle was really the stability of having like a monthly income. Because like sometimes I would have projects that would pay really well, and then months of no projects. So that was really the challenge for me, because yeah, I guess when it comes to the entertainment business, when you're starting out, it's not very stable. It really is very dependent on the types of projects you get, whether you're booking auditions or not. I've never really had experience working in a corporate setting, so luckily I've never experienced having to commute to to my job for like 2 hours, 3 hours or so. But I have, of course, experienced the Metro Manila traffic. I live in Metro Manila right now, and that's why I love working with Imogen so much, because I can live in Metro Manila, but then I have control of whether I go out of the house or not. So really for me, in terms of the difference, it would really be the stability of having a monthly income. And of course, I'm able to save a lot of time as well, because I don't have to travel to work or, going back home. So yeah, it's really such a big thing for me. And I think the other thing as well, again, when it comes to working on a set, the culture is very different, because working with Western clients, they really value that flexibility. They really value your time. Our calls are booked. These are scheduled. So anything outside of the book calls, that could be your time of whether you want to go hang out with your friends, whether you want to spend time with your family. But then I think here in the Philippines, I don't know if you have heard of Filipino time.
Yeah.
So Filipino time, being Filipinos are always like late to parties, because okay, the traffic is there, whether you're just taking some time, and sometimes we kind of move slowly, not to generalize everyone, but there is that thing culturally, we call it the Filipino time. But then with our Western clients, that doesn't really exist, so your time is so valued. With Imogen, I've never experienced her telling both Gio and I, like, can we jump on a call like right now? Like there's never any situation like that. It's always scheduled. Our time is always respected. So yeah, the flexibility, respect for time, and of course the financial stability is really different compared to at least what I've experienced working here in the Philippines.
That's really interesting because, well, coming from our Filipino English, and for you to highlight that is the truth. It's the time different, that's a big cultural difference that we've been in the middle of our whole life.
So one half of me will be late, everyone else is on time.
and it's booked so far in advance.
Yes.
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 I was just thinking as well, actually, that the work ethic in the Philippines is so high. Is so high. And then I was just wondering if working with Filipino companies, a Filipino business, that is the standard. Your work ethic and commitment is always at this level because everybody operates so well. But then have you noticed that when you work for somebody else, say, from our experience, a British company or a British client, are they like, how is their reaction to this level of work ethic? Because I feel like in the Philippines, like this is normal, but then
The standard
for in Britain, it's like everyone just seems
amazed that that's the level of dedication
yeah.
and quality is up there when it comes to whereas this is what we've seen in the UK. It just is
stories we've heard. Like, I don't know if this is true. I'm just seeing if you can verify if that is the case.
There is a huge Filipino workplace culture thing that we haven't talked about yet, which is the thing that Filipinos can't say no. So, you know, I mean, I think in England we're careful around this, but I know in the Philippines it is literally like, I don't know if anyone in 8 years has ever directly said the word no to me in my team. I don't think so. So the Filipino no is this sort of a silence I've noticed. Yeah. But people have a sense of humor. I can hear it now. So it's something that, you know, I joke about. I'm like, oh, that's a Filipino no. I know what that sounds like. It sounds like just like nothing. It's like they haven't heard. You're like, you know, so I think people that are not picking up on that might be like asking the question again, like, why aren't you responding? Haven't you heard me? And Filipinos that can be very good at reframing the no, so it doesn't quite sound like a no. It sounds like something else, or, you know, just
Oh
sort of
my gosh, give me
explaining
an
why.
example.
Well, it's more like explaining why it's a no without saying the word no.
Yeah.
So I've seen a couple of people in the team doing that, but even that's relatively forward behavior. So I know something that needs to be culturally navigated is the fact that because Filipinos can't say no very easily, their options are sometimes to, it's not just the Philippines that does this, it's an outsourcing destination. I've heard stories of other countries, but say yes, but it's not true, which most of my team don't do, to be fair, or just kind of go into silent mode, like slightly evasive. But I know that the directness with which we would address each other sometimes in the UK, that is not a Filipino thing. And especially, I think there's a little bit of a hierarchy thing. Everyone at the Freedom Geek's quite relaxed with me. And if we have a new team member and I see that they are terrified of me, which has happened every now and again, like they've kind of come into the team, but they're trying to like hide from me because I'm just terrifying and I pick up on that energy. So like with that, I try and spend some time. No, I try and spend some time with, because the boss from where they've come from, that's like something that's going to make them sweat a little bit. So sometimes I go out of my way to spend a bit of time with them when I see that reaction, to show them that I'm a human being. And between that and them spending time with the team and noticing that no one else in the team is reacting to me that way, they do relax a bit. But I think this is a thing, like in the Philippines, there is a certain pride in being a service culture. Like, we are hard workers. We're going to look after you. We are exceptionally polite. And they are. This is the plus side, of course, extremely polite culture, so respectful. You know, it's really incredible and a pleasure to work with them. But the other side of that is this difficulty of stepping up and saying, no, that's not going to work, or no, you know, I'm not able to do that. Maybe not because of their own fault. Maybe the kind of person they're working for hasn't actually set them up in the right way to do their work, because they've made a lot of assumptions, which small business owners can do. They've got no processes in place. They've never worked or trained with anyone in a support role before. There can be gaps there. So that's something that needs to be sort of understood and navigated. And one thing that my team have fed back to me a little bit, I had one quite recently with a member of the team. She also works another job at the moment, and she was saying to me that she's training some people at doing that. She's a school teacher in the Philippines, and she'll probably come and work for me full time at some point, but at the moment I've got her part time. And she was saying that she's got some new school teachers that she's training, and she's looking at the way that I train. And she said one thing that she's noticed is that I always check in on a few things with them. I check in about, how are you feeling about the work that you're doing? Are you enjoying it? What's been the most challenging? Because for me, I'm checking a little bit that energy flow. Like, are they suited to the role that I'm giving them? Because I want people to be in roles within my business where they're going to perform both because they're good at it and because they enjoy it. And then I just want to understand what's going on in their heads. And, you know, I'm 8 years in. So the person stepping into my business the day one is in a very different place for me. So I need to get back into their head sometime to see how I can help them. And I don't think a lot of people do that. So I do ask some probing questions to really get my head around where they're at, how they're feeling. Are they happy? Are they overwhelmed? Sometimes they're overwhelmed, but I know that they can do it anyway. And that's what I'll tell them. I'm like, I know that you're overwhelmed, but I know that you can do it anyway. So my team know that I do that to them sometimes because I've got the trust and I know they're capable. So that's just something that I let them know, like, I know that you're feeling like this, but I do have confidence in you. So I'm not worried. You are. So, you know, it's kind of interesting with that. And then the other thing is that my team have kind of learned, they don't ask me too many questions these days, because you know what happens when, Gio, Yas, what happens when you ask me a question most of the time about what should I do?
Hey guys, if you're new to property investing, we know exactly how hard it is to figure out where to start. That's why we created the Beginner's Roadmap. It's your guide to mastering the fundamentals so that you can move forward with clarity and confidence. Plus, you'll gain access to our free community for ongoing support. Just hit the link in the show notes. Now, let's jump back into this episode.
We figure it out.
It gets reflected back. I'm like, what do you think you should do? And then they tell me. And like most of the time they're fine. Every now and again there's a bit of tweaking. Once in a blue moon, I'm like, absolutely not because of this reasoning. And I make sure they understand my reasoning. Like, do you get it? Do you get why I don't like that path, that decision? And they're like, yeah, no, I completely understand. So yeah, that is quite a big cultural difference, and it's something that does need to be navigated a little bit carefully. So don't make the assumptions. I know that because you guys have been working with me for several years, you probably, well, Yasmyne, you came from a different industry. I mean, Gio, you've definitely seen this because you've come from proper micromanaging, yes sir, no sir type industries. Yeah, what are your thoughts? I mean, one thing that a couple of the team members have said to me, and there's good sides and bad sides to both, but I know one of the good sides about the more direct communication that someone has previously mentioned is refreshing. They're like, coming from the Filipino culture, we don't speak to each other like this. Like, there's so many, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't, you must not never do this. So the etiquette is a little bit different. So what are your sort of thoughts around that? Because I do think it's something it's really important for people to understand. And these guys, by the way, have spoken to so many Westerners and are so comfortable that I'm not concerned that they're going to hesitate to answer that question. But I think if I just took someone randomly out of the Filipino corporate office and put them on the spot like that they would squirm, because that direct communication and being free to talk like that, it's not normal for them. So yeah, Gio, what do you think?
Really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, actually, I'm just gonna be very, very honest because Imogen actually changed the whole perspective of how I speak with clients. Because I'm gonna be very honest. For the first time working with Imogen, I remember having my first meeting with her, and I was so scared to actually have a meeting with Imogen. But it turns out that she was very nice. She was very bubbly. It's because in my mind as a Filipino, I see Imogen as a boss at that time. Like, she's my boss. She should be hierarchy. She should like
The
talk
level
to
of
me.
respect.
Yes, yes. But I did not expect the meeting to be like just a friendly conversation. And it was always collaborative with Imogen. It was never I wanted to do this during a meeting. As she mentioned, it's always, what do you think? And then we would be giving suggestions, and she would say yes or no if she feels that, or maybe we can do this instead. Which is why it's very, very good. And with regards to Filipino attitude as well, most Filipinos are people pleasers and competitive in a very good way though. That's why every time a client provides a tasks and all, it's not as Imogen said, it's not a direct no. Some of it may be because of the people pleasing, and some of it is the competitive side. Like, no, I can actually do this and stuff like that. But yeah, it's never a direct no, which is also, it has pros and cons with it. Being Filipinos being people pleasers and competitive as well. But that's my whole realization that I just actually realized that now. Imogen actually set the bar of my fear with talking to Western clients or clients that are not in the Philippines, because they are actually very, very nice. Imogen's the first one. I saw that. Okay, Imogen's very, very nice. I'm sure most people are like her. So
So it's like the directness doesn't mean you're mean. It just means you're direct.
exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think as well,
What
like,
your experience?
yeah, I could potentially be direct to my team culturally, but them being direct back is a lot less comfortable. So, they're very, very careful about that. I think there's a little bit of it might be seen as a violation of respect to an extent where they're just not going to do it. They're like, I'm not going to, if I'm not sure, I'm not going to do it. But sometimes I want that direct communication. Like, they're right in parts of my business that I want to understand. So I am literally like, tell me until they tell me. And then I'm like, right, got it. But people have got used to that now. It's just been the style of, I've been careful about the fact that not even careful. I've just been aware of the fact that it's not necessarily a normal way of communicating for them, and just invited them to do it anyway, to the point where it's just become a lot more normal, if not comfortable. But it's kind of interesting. You were talking about standards, and I wanted to mention, because we just kind of talked about it a little bit, but there's a huge industry of call center jobs in the Philippines, what they call a BPO industry. And a lot of Filipinos work mostly, servicing American companies through that call center industry. And it can be wonderful for small business owners hiring VAs to hire someone who has worked in that background. So someone who's worked for a call center organization. Actually, it's a little bit different with Gio. I'm going to touch on this in a second, because I think people, well, I don't know if they've got a question about it, but they'll be able to understand from this podcast a couple of things that I'll just come back to in a second. But when someone has worked for a call center for, a year, 5 years, 10 years, they have been speaking to Americans on the phone like all day, every day. So by the time they come and work for a Western company, their English is absolutely phenomenal. And not just their English, but their understanding of Western mentality, Western business culture, potentially, etc. So they can be very, very strong. And a person like that interviewing against someone who's not got that background, I mean, immediately is going to come across as a lot more confident, a lot more kind of competent in English, etc. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be better at administration role in the background, by the way. You've got to be careful about these assumptions. But if you're looking for someone who is going to be on the phone or is going to be doing customer services, there is an interesting correlation there. So it can be really, really good. And the only way to tell if they're not American is their attitude being extremely different. It doesn't take long before you're like, hang on a minute, this doesn't sound quite right. Like, there's such different cultures that even though if the accent's identical, if you haven't picked up from the name, you're like, there's something very different about the feel of the culture of the person that I'm speaking to. So that is interesting for us. And one thing that I suggested maybe that people just don't know very much about is the level of English in the Philippines. So you may have noticed even between Yasmyne and Gio, they speak English quite differently. So Gio worked in call centers, but he was not on the phone. Like he mentioned, he was an accountancy background, which is why he still has like a little bit more of a Filipino accent. His English is great, but you can hear that accent. Yasmyne sounds a bit more American. Yasmyne, what's happened to you with your background that you speak the way you do?
Well, for me, because I attended an international school since I was in nursery until I graduated high school. So yeah, the main language that we learned was English all throughout. So the international school was also, we followed the American education system. So all the curriculum was entirely in English. You have to write in English, speak in English. And so yeah, that's where I picked it up.
So yeah, Yasmyne's a little bit posh, by the way. Like say, this is because the rest of the team were teasing her.
We have someone in the team,
Yasmyne's
Reggie. Yeah, sorry. We
Yeah.
have someone in the team
Go
though,
on.
which is Reggie. He's the one that worked in a call center industry. Like he really spoke to he has clients, he is in the customer service industry, in the BPO industry. So yes, that's why Reggie has an amazing American accent. Yeah, he really speaks very, very well.
Yeah, Reggie's a relationship manager. So again, he's very client facing. He's got all of that customer service experience. He's got an American accent. I do notice the accents in the team shifting sometimes because they are speaking to UK people a lot of the time, including me. So I do notice that their accents become more neutral because 80% of the conversations they're having, over the last few years, it's more the British accent. So, or the many accents that we have. Sometimes we have clients and they're from like Glasgow or whatever, and I'm like, well, guys, good luck. Let's see what we work out. So, yeah.
Oh, I'd love to do
Well,
that.
you in sales, you must hear it. You must have heard all the Northern accents, the Scottish accents, the Irish accents, the Welsh, the people who speak English as a second language. I mean, you've been through it all, right? So, yeah.
Do you find, Yaz and Gio, with all the different accents that come across the UK, because I know there's English, but the English themselves don't speak clear English. Do you find difficulty, like, say, talking to someone who has a strong Welsh accent or a Scottish accent, or how do you navigate? How do you navigate that? Sometimes I don't understand.
Yes.
Before we continue, here's a quick thought. Ever feel like there's just never enough time to focus on what really matters in your business? You don't have to do it all alone. As they say, a great team makes everything easier. That's why we've partnered with the Freedom Geek. Their talented Filipino VAs help us with tasks like admin and podcast editing, just like for this episode, giving us the freedom to focus on what really moves the needle. If you're looking to reclaim your time and to work smarter, then check out the Freedom Geek. All the details are in the show notes. Now let's get back to our conversation.
I don't remember if it was like a Scottish accent, that it was a client who I was speaking to on the phone. And I really had to like put him on speakerphone and like really put it close to my ear, because I could barely understand what he was saying. To an extent, I was just trying, since there's like a usual flow of the call. To an extent, I was sort of guessing what he was like trying to tell me, and then I would always have to constantly like have him repeat what he said. But yeah, I think it was like the Scottish or Irish accent, which was really, really different. But yeah, it was after I experienced that once. Later on, I was able to kind of pick it up much better. And I was actually quite surprised when I encountered it again. I was like, oh, I'm starting to understand it much more.
That's
We're now speaking the same language.
same experience. Yasmyne. Fully agree with you on that. Because a lot of our clients say usually, Gio, you have better English than most of the people here. I always get confused when they say that. I was like, what do you mean? I mean, you guys are in the UK. What do you mean? And then when I speak to these clients, I'm like, oh, okay, this is what they meant by the most people, because we have so many clients that are very good in English, but it's really just more of the accent. Sometimes I'm also trying to guess the keywords, I guess, like really being able to listen to the keywords. I don't want to offend anyone, of course. So yes, so I try to listen to the keywords and repeat it. Yeah, and repeat it just to make sure that I understood them clearly.
I can just imagine that this would be a surprise for anyone who was a new VA thinking, oh, I'm going to work with English clients and then hear a variety of accents that sound like what they might have expected. So it's just interesting to hear your experience of that. I do have a question though. So regarding, just jumping back a little bit to Imogen, when you were talking about the cultural differences in the workplace, do you give advice or sort of assist in that area of helping your clients recognize when there might be a difficulty to say no, for example, or they navigate things like this?
Well, yeah, or how to be able to make the best use of having your communication so that it works both ways. It's not just about, yes, you're employing a VA, but it needs to be able to, for a better long-term relationship.
The communication style needs to be like, how do you navigate that cultural difference in communication?
Yeah, I mean, with the clients, because we're trying to do everything possible to support them. And one thing that we have in place now, I know you ladies loved the processes, because you messaged me, I think on Instagram, being like, I love your processes, come on a podcast. And I was like, okay, great. It's nice. That's a big compliment for me, because we work really hard on them. But one of the things I have in place now, and I keep having like more coming for the future, is when they're going through the onboarding process, there's like a checklist. And one of the items on the checklist is basically, have you thought about Filipino culture? And if you haven't thought about it at all, please look at this particular part of the membership area. And then I have put together some guidelines, some things to know about Filipino culture. The number one thing I say on there is Filipinos can't say no to get them interested in, and then I just explain a little bit more what I mean by that. But, there's a couple of other things to be a little bit aware of. I mean, it's quite a religious place, the Philippines. So, just be respectful of that. I'd say it's a lot more religious than the UK, for example. But I don't think that really comes up too much, but it's good to be aware of, because you might just want to be a little bit careful about how you present yourself if you've got different beliefs, for example. And then very, very family orientated. I mean, I understand that there's a bill. I haven't talked about this recently, so I don't know where they are with it. But up until now, and I don't know what's happening next, there's no divorce in the Philippines. So, it's not legal, right? So, and that's very unusual across the world. And it does probably have an implication for the family dynamics, how strong the family unit is, how sacred it is, etc., etc. But that's a world that someone from the UK has never experienced before. So people just hearing that would be like, oh, wow, I've never heard of that before. Like, what does that what does that mean? So I think because the English is so good and things, sometimes people forget a little bit. Like for a lot of people, church and family might be important in a way that in London, you're not really thinking about those priorities, for example. So yeah, just a few things to be aware of. Doesn't really, the only thing that really affects me in business is the not saying no culture, and just understanding a little bit more around that, so that people, like, don't expect your new Filipino VA who's never worked with a Westerner before to be exactly the same, because they're not. They are a little bit different, and just encouraging a bit more understanding to think about that. And also, some people have got good intuition for it, other people not so much, but there is a natural think about the person's a person, right? So yes, you can have KPIs and standards and everything for them, but also from their side, like, what do they care about? What do they want? Like, why do they want to be there? And just encouraging people to think about that. And then I think the biggest thing with communication is regularity, because we have unfortunately seen in the past, people come on, they hire a VA, and then they just don't speak to them for a couple of weeks, and then they're like, oh, I don't feel it's going well. And I'm like, you think? You need to speak to them. Like, it's I have to tell people, things sometimes. And, especially if you're going to work together for the first time, they are going to have so many questions. So for me, like, I'm not so involved in training now because other people are doing it for me. But when I was previously in my business, that would be my highest priority before I got busy in the day. Speak to my VAs, make sure they are busy, make sure I answer their questions, make sure I have a little bit of time. If I'm really pressured, it could be 20 minutes, right? I would always usually give it at least an hour. And I would probably speak to them an hour a day during the onboarding. If that was a bit too much, shorten the time or just make it 2 or 3 times a week. But I need to make sure that they're up and running smoothly, their questions are answered up front, and that the quality of the output is good. And I need to do that really fast, because if I let that slip, then that becomes really frustrating, and no one's talking to each other, and no one knows where each other is, and people haven't set up a structure of, like, when are we going to be speaking to each other and how often, etc. And that's when things can fall apart. So I think the biggest thing about communication is the regularity, and having some kind of structure for it, and having some kind of plan of, even when I've been so busy, I haven't been able to come up with a training plan. So, we deal with a lot of property investors. So for example, I was doing HMOs before. So this strategy where you get a big house and you rent it out by the room. And if I was too busy to train that VA, I'd do one of two things. I would send them links of loads of YouTube videos about HMOs that, to be honest, I hadn't even watched, but they were the top hits on the search results. So I knew that loads of people were watching them. So they're probably fairly good, and I'd say to them, watch these videos, and then tomorrow when we speak, you present to me what you've learned on HMOs. Now that took me 5 minutes to throw that together, and that kept them busy, all day. And then the next day they'd come to me and they'd tell me everything they've learned about HMOs. And then I could do that with different property strategies. I could just do that with different videos about property, and they would start kind of self-training from materials that I could just see were popular and throwing it at them. The other thing that I would do if I was too busy to train as a hack would be, what am I actually doing today, and what can the VA shadow? So, that's another thing. That'd be like, I'm having a call with somebody. It's not a sensitive call. Why doesn't this VA just come and watch that call that I have to do anyway, and then tell me what they learned about the business from that call? And I leverage that a lot in the team now to train people across the business. Hey, new person that's just started with us, go and watch Gio do a sales call, and then speak to him about what happened during the call. And then we have a structure for the way that Gio would feedback to me about how enthusiastic he felt that person was, how engaged, how good the questions were they asked, etc., etc. So even though I wasn't in that session, I'd have a really accurate picture of how that newbie was absorbing that session, how they were clicking with the team or not, etc. Because I know as well that some people will behave differently with me than with members of my team, and I'm on the lookout for that. So don't tell me that you're the employee of the year and then not bother to show up to Geo session, because I'll know all about it. Like, I know everything. So yeah, there's my little kind of control freak meets efficiency style with that. But yeah, I do that kind of thing a lot. Yeah.
I was going to say, sorry, but this is why we personally love you, is because you are so efficient with making sure there's constant feedback, which is so important for a business. If you are not getting constant feedback, whether someone else is giving the feedback to Gio or someone's giving the feedback to Yaz, then they also have something to learn from a third person giving that feedback that they can improve on. But you have this built into your whole system about always communicating the feedback, which actually makes you like such a, like such a forward thinking modern business, and keeps you at that level because you're getting communication from here, there, everywhere.
Full perspective.
Exactly. That's the word, the full perspective of the business.
Yeah, it's measured. There's a quote about this, like in business, if it's not measured, it's not managed. And I'm like, okay, so I could tell someone, go off and do a training session, but I need some kind of measurement about how successful that was. And I usually take that from my existing team, because the new person, sure, I can see how they're performing through that feedback. And if I have multiple data points of what Yas said, of what Gio said, of this activity, that activity, then I immediately see the trend about how enthusiastic and engaged that person really is from the moment they kind of hit the ground with us. I can do that through team or individually. I've kind of shown a couple of different angles with it. And it's interesting because before you were talking about standards, and yeah, Filipino people work really hard. They work really hard. They can do. I mean, most culturally, it is definitely a thing. I'm not saying there aren't lazy people, because there are lazy people everywhere, but culturally, they do work very hard. And it's something that Western business owners see sometimes. However, they do need great instructions and directions from us. Like, they could work their heart out, but if you haven't given them good instructions, and I know the early days, I used to think I was great at giving instructions, and then I got the lesson that I actually wasn't. I thought I was, because I was telling people stuff, but I wasn't checking their understanding. I was like, oh, you seem great. You were great in interview. You've got the gift of the gab, maybe. So you came across, really well. But that doesn't translate into like excellence on research or project work or even data entry. So I need to see a sample of that work as soon as possible. So these days I try not to over explain, or there's a set of instructions that's given to everybody, so I don't have to create that more than once. And then, we immediately are measuring output immediately to see how strong we feel that person is. And it's not always in correlation to how well their interview went. Because I mentioned with Yasmyne and Gio, these are people that are very comfortable talking to people, storytelling, selling, perform, that's their thing. But I know that there's other things I could plug them into that they either would not be so good at, or they would be okay, but they would hate every living minute of it because that's not for them. Both of these guys on data entry would probably be killing their souls, because it's just the opposite of what I should be doing with them. And I don't think people really think about that. And measuring, if I'm measuring both how they feel about it, they'd be reluctant to tell me that they hate it, but I'd probably manage to pick up on it anyway if I asked enough questions. And, also looking at their performance, like one of those things wouldn't be quite right because they're not working in the kind of flow that, I talked a little bit about wealth dynamics, and this is this measurement of like what kind of person you are. These guys are both classified as stars under that system. I'm a little bit star. I'm actually more creative. That means my wonderful place is like locked in a small room where I can like draw all over the walls and like lose time and just like have lots of multicolored pens and just really go into my own heads and get some of the unicorns out, because that's basically my superpower. And that goes into like systems design, because I'm also a little bit of a kind of systematic person, but also I love storytelling and creativity, and I've trained these guys to sell in that storytelling style that I really enjoy. So I'm a bit of a mix, but I am ultimately the creator, which one thing for me is that I hate repeating things. It kills my soul. These guys are a little bit impatient with it, but I cannot repeat over and over again. That's a terrible thing for me. And by the way, creators, quite often business founders, and quite often some of the worst people to work with. If you want a reliable admin VA, the roller coaster of the creative temperament, I mean, just watch out for us, because we are the most unmanageable, difficult ones. So even though I am one, when I see like someone being flagged, being like, oh, this person, do you want to hire them? I'm like, oh God, not another creator. These are the worst. Like, it's just like I'm borderline unemployable. So yeah, it's interesting when you think about that. I've got a real attitude problem as well with the conventional workplace stuff. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. The standards. Yeah, so I was going to specifically say standards from the Philippines are wonderful. However, your standard as a business owner you need to like commit to delegation, commit to the communication, and to commit to giving incredible instructions, like really detailed, incredible instructions. Design it as though they were stupid so they can do it if they were intelligent. This is how like McDonald's is run by a load of teenagers, right? Because they're like, put the burger on the right hand side and then do this and then do that. If you can get instructions to that level, then it means that, you know, it just helps them. It removes all doubt. They're like, this is exactly how she wants it done or how he wants it done. And then as they build their confidence and as they understand the business, they can kind of help at a higher level. But that's definitely a great place to start with a lot of generalist Filipino VAs who are going to be supporting the business. And there are some people who are incredibly smart and can figure everything out, but they're probably in the minority. Most people just need a lot of support in what do you actually want me to do? I'll work hard, but what do you really need? What do you actually want? And I think that's where standards are kind of interesting, because I've had both feedback from, I've had these two sets of feedbacks from clients. One, my VA is amazing. They work so hard, blah, 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 blah. Two, I'm frustrated with my VA. Now, there could be different reasons for that. One could be it's the problem with the VA that they're not good enough, but it could also be a problem with you. You don't communicate. You don't give good instructions. You don't have any processes in your business. You're working in chaos. You brought someone else into it. You're not managing yourself, and now you're not managing them, and you're angry with me. So there is a whole understanding about delegation, mindset, setting up your processes. That's a lot of small business owners really need to go through, and then they'll get the absolute best from the VAs, from themselves, from their business. And my backgrounds before this, you know, so I was in corporate London, you know, financial services, probably one of the most aggressive, status orientated, male, you know, environments, business environments. So my standards are really high because I had to deal with people that wouldn't take any less. And of course, I run my own business. It's my little business baby. My standards for that are really, really high too. So, you know, if I have high standards for myself and my business, I also need to have high standards for the quality of work that I want done. And I need to lay that out step by step. So these guys know, because their butts got kicked in the sales training. That was a baptism of fire for the both of them, because I wanted everything. Guys, I need your accuracy. I need your performance. I need your storytelling. I need you to build rapport with people. And I need you to do it in the first 5 seconds. I need you to be in a good mood and a high energy, no matter how you feel. I need you to listen. I need you to objection handle. And I was like, I want you to be funny. I want that client to come off the call loving you. And they are good, but that's not easy, that standard that I laid out for them and trained and showed them and made them. And it was kind of funny with both of them. Yasmyne was a little overconfident when she came in. So she's good at what she does normally. So she was like, I could do this. And you got completely rinsed out in the early days, didn't you, Yasmyne? You were destroyed a few times. So you had to rebuild yourself up, because I was like, no. And then Gio was a little bit the opposite. He didn't have the confidence. I knew he could do it. And I was like, do it like this. And until he kind of got there and that problem went away. So yeah, just a little bit of insight on how that's all worked. And they make it look very natural now. So you don't realize necessarily how much is going on in the background with them, because it's not easy what those guys do. A lot of people can't do all of those things simultaneously under pressure. Yeah, let alone the time pressure, let alone you have no idea what the client's going to be like. They might be really nice and friendly and sweet and listen to you, but we have, you know, our clients are business owners. There's some really alpha, aggressive people that come in, you know, hi, I'm Gio. I don't care. Can you tell me this? Like, whoa, okay. So yeah, it's been interesting.
I think that is such a good point, though. It's like, we know that Filipinos are famous for the work ethic, but it is your responsibility as a business owner to harness that energy and communicate effectively so that no one's left in the dark. You know, like, where to position that energy, where to position that help so it helps you.
Also, what you said as well, if you're coming from chaos, then set up those systems first, or like just try to, before you take in a VA and bring them into that chaos, because that's not fair on anyone. And you could be so lovely in like the beginning when you meet, but then if you still haven't sorted out the constant chaos, to have those manuals, dedicating at least 30 days to create a habit, like, or more, or whatever the saying is. Like, if you don't dedicate 30 hours in the beginning with your VA, how are you going to be on the same page to continue having a good relationship that's not going to just be based on assumption that they should know? So I think those were really, really great points that you were saying.
Yeah, and some people are never realistically going to have their systems set up before their VAs come in, because we are absolutely drowning sometimes as business owners. It's like, oh, I forgot to eat for the last 5 hours. I need to stop. Like, a lot of entrepreneurs have been through that kind of like craziness. So I understand that it can be difficult, but you need to control at least a proportion of your chaos to onboard them. And that's kind of what some of the hacks I gave are. I think people are like, oh, it's going to be perfect first. That's not realistic either. But it's like, think about what you're already doing that you can show them. Think about how you can kind of like, do this thing of just giving them some information to understand your industry better, and then just going back and make sure they've understood, and just make it your highest priority to keep them busy in some way that's going to be helpful to you either right now or later, so that you don't, really lose that window and then you're drowning in your chaos and you're like, well, this hasn't worked. And it's like, yeah, but it's like you said, I don't know, it's like you said you were going to get fit but never changed any of your habits. It's like, of course it's not going to work. Like, that's just the way that it is. And another difference here is, a Filipino virtual assistant and ours, the rates, because I wanted to talk about money a little bit. And the starting rate is about £3 an hour. So we'll talk a little bit about money and ethics. But, if you're looking for a virtual assistant or a PA, executive assistant type person who is used to up managing, dealing with alpha personalities, doing a lot for them, up managing you as a boss, I mean, that's probably a UK person who's done it in the banking industry that's going to cost you, 40 or £50 an hour. So if you can't work with anyone else, just be aware that that's what you need, and that's the kind of price point you probably need to pay for it. But if you're going to come to the Philippines, it's a lot more affordable, and you want to sort of do the geo arbitrage side of leveraging that, then the price point is different. The temperament is different, which I've touched upon. So it's not going to be easy for them to up manage you because they're not used to that. That's not the way that it really goes culturally either. So just have the awareness around that, what you pay at different price points and what it really means. I think a VA from the Philippines is a little bit more like an apprentice in some ways. They come in and they work their way up from the ground up within your business, which is phenomenal. Like, I built my whole team that way and delegated a lot of different things. But yeah, it's taken a lot of my time. It's formed my expertise so I can talk about it. If you want an expert consultant in your business to teach you how something specific is done, that is different from a VA. A lot of people come to us for that. And it's like, that's not something that I'm comfortable with a Filipino VA doing. They'll be like, I want them to manage my Facebook ads campaign. I'm like, that's not my area of expertise. So I'm not comfortable testing it. Do you know how to do it? No. So we are the blind leading the blind, leading the blind. Let's not even go there. Figure it out, find a consultant, maybe have the consultant teach you the process or collaborate, get it up and running, have the system, the process, and then the VA can take it over. Fair enough. You can do almost everything in your business with that approach. But you go from the expensive end down to the affordable end by like learning the process and the skills first, wherever you learn it from. But don't do this, let's just take I think I over inspire people. They're like, they can do anything. And I'm like, be careful. If you can't do it, you need to be careful. If you can do it, fair enough. Yeah, just don't, when people, I get quite uncomfortable with this stuff. I'm like, I just see it as a so much higher risk recipe for disaster. I'm like, if you're already the Facebook ads expert, then great. You know exactly what you're doing. You can teach someone else. It's probably extremely easy and straightforward. But the money I wanted to say, because I have been asked about this, sometimes criticized, etc. So £3 an hour in the Philippines, let's say someone working full time with that rate, it's going to be about £500-600 a month, depending on how many hours they kind of work that month. If you had them, that's working roughly 8 hours a day. If you had them part time, working about 4 hours a day, that's going to take it down to, £250-300 a month. I mean, unbelievably affordable for business owners. If you take it down to 2 hours a day, I don't like 2 hours a day, because 2 hours a day means they've not got enough work for you. They're maybe not helping you enough in your business if you really need to delegate. They might get bored. They might take on a lot of other clients, which means you're not their highest priority anymore. I just don't really like that balance. We've done it for people, but I don't love it. I think 4 to 8 hours is a lot more momentum, better for the relationship, better for the focus on the business, etc. But then the question is, for a Filipino person, is that wage, especially let's talk about the full-time thing, the £500-600 an hour, Is that okay? Is it exploitation? I don't like that word, but sometimes when I've mentioned what I do, people are like, oh, you're exploiting people, whereas you have come on and been like, you're helping them. So because we've got Yasmyne and Gio here, by the way, these guys make commissions on sales, so they do pretty nicely sometimes, I have to say. So based on their performance, obviously, and yeah, I want to open the floor up to them to comment on that in terms of living in the Philippines, salary, good money, bad money, the opportunities, etc. Because it's a little bit sensitive, but I think it's important to talk about. And it's one thing that I wanted to mention, and I want to, I haven't like, what do you call? I haven't trained them or groomed them in any way to answer this. It's something we've occasionally talked about every now and again. But like, yeah, no, what do you guys think on that? Like, go for it.
Yeah, so do you want to speak first or?
No, go ahead.
Well, I look very happy, so I hope that says a lot. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, I've been working with a Filipino company in the BPO industry for like 5 years, right? And then safe to say, financial wise, working for the Freedom Geek made me the happiest one. Maybe this is the happiest year I've ever decided to go with. Um, Not just because of Imogen, of course, not just because of the skills I've been learning, but it to be to be very frank as well, it is because of the pay also. A lot of clients do worry if it is enough, like the £3 per hour is enough. As Imogen mentioned, actually with regards to the minimum wage here in the Philippines, it is £9 per day, not per hour, and that's already for a full time role. So that's actually amazing. Plus, of course, the commute. That's why, because I work from home, I save from the commute, the stress and the financial side of commuting. And again, I've been working with the accounting company for like 5 years, and my highest pay is still with the Freedom Geek. So that's really says a lot compared to, so we're very, very happy with regards to this one. And that's why a lot of Filipinos are actually transitioning to being a VA as well. It's not just really because of the commute. It is a bonus, but earning wise, plus having that freedom to spend time with your family, plus being the comfort of your home, it's really amazing. It is a life changer. And I do believe that I honestly feel that a lot of Filipinos deserve to be virtual assistants, because again of the work ethic of how Filipinos work, they do deserve to have better pay as well.
So on the numbers, so Gio said it was about £9 a day. So, just over £1 an hour from the minimum wage side of things. And then we start them at 3. And by the way, you can pay Filipino VAs more than that, like either over time or even potentially upfront. I would be careful about just immediately doing it upfront, because I'd want to see quality control first. Even if it was very affordable for the business to pay a lot more, I'd say just make sure that you're working with somebody that you really love working with, that you want to, that they're going to be great for the business. So feel that out a little bit before you go too crazy on that, and make it meaningful. Like, don't just be like, oh, I'm going to double your salary because I'm rich and I can afford it, because that's not meaningful for them. That's, that's a bit throw it in your face. Like, money means nothing to my boss. Like, it would be like, well, if you do this for me, if you complete this KPI, if you complete this project, whatever works for you, if you keep hitting these standards that I've got for you, then it will increase. And I recommend kind of gradual increases over time. Or, it depends on their role. So these guys are in sales. That's pretty obvious. If like a client comes and onboards with us, then you get a commission. If you're doing a property investment, for example, and you're like, right, if my VA is involved in deal find and they find me a great deal and I do it, maybe I'll give them an incentive, a bonus to say, thank you very much for that, because that was, something I really wanted. Or I used to do it with new tenants. I'm like, if you find a tenant for my HMO, because they were doing tenant find activities and they move in, I also gave them a financial bonus. So it could be linked to success stones for your business that are very, very specific. And that's quite helpful too. So very many different ways to structure this. And again, I've put a lot of that in the membership area so people can really get their head around the money side. Now, I talked about, well, you accounted, so hopefully you could do maths, or you used to be. I don't normally challenge you on this, but like, so £500, £600 a month for a virtual assistant working online for a UK company. as like a starting point for business owners, entrepreneurs, etc., to understand. Like I said, you can afford to pay them double, and they do business, they do great for you. Pay them double, pay them triple. I would never say don't cap it, but it's about the affordability of your business and where you're at. And for some businesses, they're not able to pay a lot more. They're just not. It's either the Philippines or it's nothing, because that is their cash flow reality. So that's a side to it that I do really understand, obviously, because I'm living that. But for an accountant, let's say a junior accountant, a senior accountant in the Philippines, what would they typically be making in pounds per month, would you say?
Wait, let me convert.
I guess just talking after Imogen and Gio about the hourly rate, it's such a good starting point both for the Filipino VA and also for the clients. That's why I love being in the sales position, because I know it's good for the VAs and it's also good for the clients. So we always tell them it's a good starting point, £3 per hour. But like what Imogen says, if the business is doing well, if the VAs are doing well and they're able to really show you how competent they are, how great they are, then feel free to increase their salary as you see fit. And I just like that flexibility that the VAs are able to work hard towards that and get that increase in salary. And also, of course, the clients, they're not put into a position where they cannot hire a virtual assistant. I just really love how it works both ways for both VA and the client. Like us, Gio and I, being in sales, I really love the fact that I'm able to have that base salary if I'm doing other things with the Freedom Geek, but also having that commission-based income as well, because it's really based off of my efforts, whether I'm doing really well with sales, whether I'm not, and I'm able to really control what I am earning. For me, when I was doing sales in the beginning, like I mentioned, I was studying and I was a part-time student, or sort of full-time part-time student, studying business. And I was part-time with Imogen, but I was practically earning like a full-time employee in the Philippines, or I'm earning double a full-time income of someone working as an employee in the Philippines in a corporate setting. So even I was like, whoa, this is possible. Like, this is possible for me to earn this much online. And yeah, aside from the hourly rate, the £3 per hour, the bonuses, the promotions and stuff, it's a good starting point. But also really a lot of Filipinos moving into the virtual assistant world, they're really looking for more benefits, not just the income. Like what Gio mentioned, it's really about like the flexibility, being able to spend more time with their family, being able to manage their time with work and with family at the same time. And just, I guess, having a boss that really understands their personal life and has that connection with them is what most VAs are really after. That's why they're transitioning from a corporate setting into the virtual assistant industry.
Yeah, I think also a good point to highlight as well is I think if you don't know the exchange rate in like different countries, and actually if you're a Westerner, for instance, and you are employing a VA abroad, it's easy to think, oh well, you're exploiting, but no, it's not the case, because the money that you pay does go further, and also from the flexibility of VAing. VAing, is that a word? VAing. Like, there are so many more benefits. Like, of course, like money does matter, but it's all
Factor in the travel time.
It's all of the other
flexibility, being around there for family, being able to drop it and then resume if you have to look after your children or your parents. That's so valuable.
I think it's a very closed-minded comment to assume that, oh, because you pay for services outside of your home country, that's exploitation. And I think people need to wake up that we work globally now, and this is how it works.
Yeah, this is really, I mean, this hasn't come too much for the entrepreneurial community, but sometimes people troll a little bit on Facebook or something if I try and say what I do. I've learned not to put the actual figures, because people can get very annoyed with it, but as part of an entrepreneurial conversation, more than happy to talk about it. And yeah, as you say, the other motivations, because we don't just work for money. In fact, sometimes people stay in jobs quite happily for less money because they love the work culture, they love their team and colleagues, they love their boss, they love the mutual respect, they love the fun element, they love the learning curve of a small business. I mean, oh my God, we are really in it with the learning curves with all small businesses. Like we really, really are, from the boss down to the person they might start as an admin assistant, but they might be, I don't know, head of marketing 5 minutes later, because small businesses move like that. If they've got the skill set, the value that they add, Filipino people do see it and they care. They understand. These guys understand. Business owners are burnt out, exhausted wrecks sometimes, and we really need the help. And we get a lot of thank you messages, which is lovely. People are like, I can sleep more. Like, I've got some help finally, and I just feel great about it. The flexible hours, the Manila commute has been touched upon a little bit, but it's one of the worst cities for traffic in the world. You go from like multi-lanes to like there's a bottleneck and a person with a load of chickens blocking it, and now everyone's stuck for 20 minutes. So, that is life in Manila, and that's why everyone ends up like 4 hours sitting in traffic every day, a couple of hours to get to work, a couple of hours to get home, never mind potentially working the graveyard shift for one of the call center jobs servicing the US, one of the best employment opportunities out there in that market. So, call center jobs may not be considered the best jobs in the UK, but they very much are in the Philippines. They're one of the highest paying, the way your English develops, some of the bonuses and benefits they've got. But then it does mean that commute, that night shift, and potentially it depends what call center you're working for. But don't forget, the other problem with call centers is that people quite often call when they're really angry. So you might have your soul ripped apart for 10 hours solid, depending on, what exactly your role is there. So, have to be incredibly resilient to deal with that. Incredibly. And it is a culture where people just do not lose their cool. They're quite incredible for that, I have to say. It's an absolute pleasure to work with them because of these kind of things. But yeah, all of the motivations around it. It's not just about money, but I do like to talk about money because I think people find it interesting. People maybe wonder about it. Maybe people feel guilty sometimes. If you feel guilty because you could pay loads more because your business can afford it, then address that separately, aligned to performance. But don't feel guilty at the concept, because this is a great opportunity for somebody. The many different things I've mentioned there, and then let's talk about the actual money. So we know it's about 3 times minimum wage, and it's not a like for like market. The Philippines is full of small businesses, family run businesses. They don't necessarily have like banking industries the same way they would in the UK. I mean, they do have one, but it's not like as global or as prominent, etc. So, or they wouldn't have they just don't have the same kind of industries at that level. There's a lot of small businesses. And that's why if you're a Filipino, you've got call center jobs, you've got government jobs, and then I don't know, you've got kind of agriculture jobs, you've got start a small business, but you don't necessarily have the option of jumping onto these are the hundreds of different graduate opportunities that you could, they don't really have that. Like that, they don't have those kind of things. The virtual assistant world is probably the closest they have to that. And the more we create that and bring them into it, the better. But yeah, so Gio, do you have some numbers just so we can get an idea? Accountant, which is obviously a skilled position, what do you think they're looking at for like monthly wages in pounds as a range?
Yes. So for a starting accountant, actually, like a certified public accountant, here what I know is they get paid £250 per month. That's on an 8-hour basis already. And with regards to the competitive side of the accounting firms here, it's not assurance that it is 8 hours per day. Sometimes the unpaid overtime is also there because, of course, the demand of the accounting world and the accounting firm. And for a senior accountant, or someone that has worked with that for like 5 years, it would increase up until £380. Yes, per month, most probably. Actually, before I decided to go with this BPO industry, I actually applied for banks as well. And I did not get that offer because they pay £150 per month to start. And that's 8 hours per day. I was like, how am I gonna survive at 150 pounds per month? I was kind of sad because I studied in a prestigious school for like 4 years, and this is just gonna be my starting salary. I was very sad about it, but that's the reality here in the Philippines. So to say that it's exploitation is really not it at all. We're very happy to work virtually for our clients. And Imogen,
Not knowing where opportunity is, the opportunity to earn more, and amazing that it's virtually, is outside. Like, why wouldn't you?
yeah, exactly. Yes.
Thank you guys for
Yeah.
shedding light on the reality and sharing your perspectives, because this is so valuable. I think it's so easy just to be on one side of the fence looking in or jumping to assumptions, but we've really, really enjoyed this call with all of you and having this group chat and just really getting to know the people behind the business. So thank you so much.
Thank you
We
so
have a question.
much.
Fun.
We'd love to ask a question. We can start with Imogen. Honestly, the biggest lesson I've learned is...
In life, in business.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So it could be about absolutely anything. It could be about life. It could be about business. It could be about VA, anything. I know it's quite a loaded. It won't. It won't be the last thing on your gravestone. Don't worry.
I don't think you asked me this last time. There are two things that
No, I
pop into
didn't.
my head. So I've been there a little bit. One is one's consistency, because if anything's important to you, you've got to be consistent and show up. And that is a big one in business, because there are so many days where you feel a little bit beaten up. But the other one, I have to say it, and leverage. Of course, I'm obsessed with leverage. In every
How
way.
did we?
I
You
live in
mentioned that.
Mexico. Like lifestyle is better here because I can afford more. So yeah, let alone obviously the
Yeah.
Philippines.
Yes. Go where you're served best.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. What about you, Yas?
I guess in relation to the Freedom Geek and business and Imogen, I think the biggest lesson I've learned in solving problems is creativity. Because I learned through Imogen and the Freedom Geek, when we have problems within the business, it's really just a matter of how creative you are in order to solve them. And I realize when it comes to sales, the more creative we are, the more sales we make. The more creative we are, the more we enjoy our job. So yeah, I think creativity and infusing that with the day-to-day things that we do is really important.
I love that.
That's a good
It's so true,
answer, yeah.
especially now.
Yeah.
If you don't have a presence online, you need to come up with creative ways to appear online. Otherwise, no one's going to notice your business. So that is so true. What about you, Gio?
I think it's to never doubt yourself and try to listen to others' perspective of you as well. I think that's my biggest learning, especially here in the Freedom Geek, as well and being a VA. Because again, I've never seen myself in a sales role. And when Yasmyne Imogen offered it to me, actually, from being a relationship manager, I was very hesitant. But I was thinking, Imogen must have saw something in me that I don't see in me yet, that could possibly be a potential. So when I actually tried it out, and then I see myself enjoying it so much. If I was just I was an accounting graduate, I should just be doing accounting. If I stuck myself there, then I would have been this happy with a role. So I think that's my.
I love that. Open-minded.
Being open-minded.
Thank you, guys. I love your nuggets of wisdom at the end. If anyone's looking for a Filipino VA, where can they find you?
Thefreedomgeek.com, and then click on the book it a call button, and you'll fast track to Yasmyne and Gio. So please do that if you're looking for a VA. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll put the links in the show notes. If you're listening and you are interested in systemizing and taking a load off of your life
And
leveraging, then check those links out. And thank you once again, Maraming salamat po for joining us on the episode. It's been so lovely to see you all in person again. So, virtually. But that's the beauty of internet, isn't it? We're all in different parts of the world.
But one day we'll all meet in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Well, have a great rest of your day, guys. Or evening, or probably.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.